Lotus flowers are a beautiful and unique addition that you can easily grow yourself. With these simple tips, you can easily grow these beautiful flowers in your own home. If you're looking to add a bit of beauty to your home, why not try growing lotus flowers? A lotus flower is not only stunning, but it is also relatively easy to grow. With just a few supplies and some patience, you can have your own little oasis right in your backyard. Here in this video, we will discuss how to grow a lotus flower at home in detail. You will learn details like planting lotus seeds, fertilizing lotus flowers, naturalizing, and others. This will be a post about taking care of your lotus plants at home. Lotus plants sometimes get confused with water lilies, but please remember those are two different plants. Seems interesting? Let's get started. How to grow a lotus flower. If you're interested in growing your own lotus flower, there are a few things you need to know. Where to grow lotus plants. Lotus is an aquatic plant. It grows best in full sun and aquatic features with no water flow. Flowing water disrupts the lotus plant's growth and inhibits flowering. The ideal soil for growing lotus. Don't use your traditional potting soil for growing a lotus plant. As the lotus is an aquatic plant, you have to submerge the growing pot in a pond. Potting mix is generally lightweight, and if you put it underwater, the soil will float, and you won't be able to grow the plant. Instead, use heavy topsoil like clay. Mix a small amount of organic compost with the clay and use it to grow your lotus plant. Typically, a mix of 80% clay and 20% organic compost will be best for growing lotus plants. Required sunlight. Lotus plants love sunlight. To bloom and thrive, they need at least 6 hours of daily sunlight. How to plant lotus plant. Growing a lotus plant is quite easy and fun. You can grow lotus either from a tuber or from a seed. How to grow lotus flowers from seeds. When it comes to planting lotus seeds, there are a few things you need to know in order to ensure a successful harvest. For starters, you need to make sure that the seeds are fresh. This is key in getting them to germinate. Planting lotus seeds. Planting lotus seeds is relatively a simpler process. With the help of a file or knife, scrape the hard seed coating and reveal the core seed. This will allow the water to enter the core of the seed, but don't scrape the cream-colored seed core. This will damage the seed permanently. Before planting lotus seeds, first, place the seeds in a bowl of warm water. Seeds should get drowned in water. The seeds that float are infertile. Remove them from the water. Now soak the healthy seeds in water for a day. This will make the seeds swell up almost twice their original size. Keep the seeds in the water while changing the water daily. This will continue till they sprout and becomes ready for transplanting. Use a mid-size, 10 liters to 20 liters, container for planting those lotus sprouts. Unlike other containers that you use to grow plants, this container should not have any drainage holes. The soil for growing lotus ideally has 2 parts clay and 1 part river sand. Never use commercial potting soil to grow lotus plants. Those soil mixes are lightweight and are good for growing plants in normal circumstances. As we are going to submerge the container in water, the lightweight soil mix would float to the surface. Once the lotus seedlings become a little stable, up to 6 inches long, we can now transfer them to the container that we have just prepared. Sow the sprouted seeds into the soil with a gap of 4 inches. Instead of burying the seeds in the soil, put the seed on the soil and give a light layer of soil to them. Wrap a little bit of modeling clay at the bottom of each seed for anchorage. Otherwise, when you lower the container into the pond, the seeds might leave the soil and float up to the surface of the water. Now, lower the pot into the pond. Make sure there are at least 2 to 4 inches of water above the soil. For some lotus varieties, taller varieties, the water level needs to be as high as 18 inches. For dwarf lotus plants, 2 to 12 inches of water is enough. Maintain the water temperature around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are growing lotus in a relatively cooler climate, provide extra warmth for your lotus. Growing lotus plants from tubers. In most cases, people grow lotus plants from tubers. This is the bottom part of the plant that also has roots in it. Sometimes when you buy tubers from nurseries, it might look a bit wilted. There is nothing to worry about. You can grow lotus from these tubers too. How to plant lotus tubers. For planting the tuber, use a pot that doesn't have any drainage holes. Now fill the pot with soil for about 4 inches. Water the soil lightly to make it wet. Don't add more water at this stage. Now gently place the tuber with growth tips pointing upwards on the surface of the wet soil and cover it a little bit with soil. Make sure that the growth tips should remain slightly above the soil and that the rest of the tuber should remain buried. Spread a 2-inch deep layer of coarse sand over the soil surface. The sand will keep the tuber in place and will also prevent the soil from getting muddy. Empty the tuber into the sand and weigh it down with stones to keep it from floating. Next, fill the pot with more water until it reaches just above the growing tips. The growth tips of the tuber should be underwater at all times. Keep replenishing the water when it evaporates. Place the pot in a place where it receives steady sunlight throughout the day. After a few days, the lotus will break dormancy and you will see some aerial leaf growth. Also check out our galvanized steel watering can, which is designed for watering plants at your home, office, or your lovely garden. Link is given in the description. Do have a look. How to fertilize a lotus flower. First thing first, never apply any fertilizer before several floating leaves appear. Fertilizing too early can cause damage to the plants. Once you see some floating leaves appear before your eyes, apply a good soluble fertilizer once every 20 days. It's very important not to over-fertilize your lotus plants. It can really kill your plants, especially when they are very small. You can also use fertilizer in the powdered form. The trick is to wrap a small amount of the fertilizer in newspaper and place it under the soil in the container. Another good fertilizer for lotus plants is commercial slow-releasing tablets like these. You can place them under the soil just like the powdered fertilizers. Whatever method you choose to fertilize the lotus flower, always read the direction mentioned in the packet. How to naturalize lotus plants. For naturalizing lotus plants in a larger pond, anchor the tubers directly in the muddy bottom near the edge of the pond. From there, they can spread easily. Can you grow lotus flowers indoors? Many people believe it is not possible to grow lotus flowers indoors, but lotus can actually thrive indoors if you grow them properly. Problem with flowering? How to get more lotus blooms. Sometimes many growers have questions like why my lotus plant is not flowering. Though there can be many reasons for this, here are some tips that will help you get the perfect bloom in your lotus plant. Take the utmost care when planting your lotus plant. Whether you are growing lotus from seeds or tuber, if the planting is not right, you will never see your desired result. Sunlight is very important for the lotus plants. Make sure the plant gets 6 hours of daily sunlight. The flowering process cannot be completed without enough sunlight. Fertilizing aquatic plants, like a lotus, is different from terrestrial plants. Use a fertilizer that is specifically made for aquatic plants. In conclusion, growing lotus plants at home are not as difficult as it may seem. With the proper care and attention, these beautiful flowers can thrive in any home. By following the simple steps outlined in this video, you can enjoy the beauty of lotus plants in your own home. I hope this video was helpful. If you like the video, feel free to share it with others too. We will recommend you to watch our next video about how you can grow onions from recycled plastic bottles. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss an update. Thank you.